You pull the cabin door shut behind you, give the handle that little tug to make sure it caught, and head down the gangway into a bright morning in port. The bed's still unmade. Your charger's still plugged into the wall by the nightstand. There's a paperback face down on the desk and a wet towel over the bathroom door, and your passport is, you're pretty sure, sitting in the safe where you left it. And then you're gone, off to a beach, a market, a bus tour, whatever the day holds. The room goes quiet behind you. Most people picture that room staying exactly like that. Frozen, waiting, a little time capsule of your morning that sits untouched until you swipe back in that evening. That's not what happens at all. Because the moment you tapped down that gangway, the ship already knew. Every cruise runs on an all-aboard time, the hard cutoff before the ship leaves port, and to enforce it, your keycard gets scanned on the way off and scanned on the way back. So somewhere on that ship, in a system nobody ever shows you, there's already a live tally of exactly who is ashore and who is aboard. Your empty cabin isn't really empty, it's a data point, and the room you think you left behind is being watched more closely than you'd ever guess. Here's the first thing most passengers don't know. Within an hour or two of you leaving, someone lets themselves into your room. It's your cabin steward, the person who makes your bed, folds the towel animals, restocks the little shampoos. On a normal day, they service each cabin once or twice, and while you're ashore is prime working time because an empty room is a fast room. So they key in and they get to work. And that's a friendlier version of the frozen time capsule one, right up until you realize what that visit actually is. That steward is the ship's first sensor. Think about it. They enter your specific cabin on a schedule and they notice things, whether the bed was slept in, whether yesterday's room service tray is still sitting out, whether the do not disturb light has been on for a day and a half, whether anything looks wrong. Housekeeping is the visible job, but the invisible job riding underneath it is presence detection. When a cruise line needs to figure out whether a passenger has actually been in their cabin, the steward's read is the first thing they check. They make the bed, they note the room, they move on, and you never see any of it. Which raises the obvious question you're probably already asking. If crew are letting themselves into my room while I'm off eating tacos on a beach, what's stopping someone from just walking off with my stuff? Less than you'd think and more than you'd think, both at once. Cabin doors open only to keyed, credentialed crew, and those entries get logged electronically, every swipe timestamped, tied to a specific card. So it's not an open door, it's an access record. Theft does happen, rarely, and when it does, that log is exactly why it tends to get traced back to somebody. But the ship's real answer to the problem is sitting bolted inside your closet, the in-room safe. Passports, cash, the nice watch, the cruise line's very strong preference is that all of it lives in that box, because a locked safe you control is a liability the ship doesn't have to carry. The safe isn't a hotel amenity, it's the ship quietly handing the risk back to you. So your valuables are locked away, your steward's done their round, and everything you left out in the open is still sitting out in the open, noted, tidied around, never pocketed. And if you did leave something behind that gets picked up, a pair of sunglasses on the pool deck, a charger a steward finds wedged behind the nightstand, that doesn't vanish either. It goes into a system, and the system is more serious than you'd expect. Found items get logged and inventoried through a lost and found operation, tagged with where they turned up, held for a set window. Norwegian, for one, holds unclaimed items about 45 days before they're donated or discarded. There's a paper trail on your $10 charging cable. Now, here's the part that makes this genuinely impressive. That whole choreography, the scan, the steward, the access log, the lost and found ledger, runs for every cabin, on every port day, on every ship, everywhere in the world, all the time. A single ship can carry a few thousand passengers, and on a port morning, most of them stream off at once, leaving hundreds and hundreds of empty rooms behind, each one read and logged as a matter of pure routine. The system's whole triumph is that it's invisible. It works so smoothly you sail an entire week convinced nothing was happening in there at all. And on the standard day, here's what all of it costs you. Nothing, not a cent. The steward, the scan, the log, the lost and found shelf, it's all just the ship humming along because you're coming back. Your fare is paid, and this is simply what a normal day looks like. The machinery is free precisely because the story ends with you walking back up that gangway at sunset. But what happens if you don't? Because there's a whole other version of this. The all-aboard time comes and goes, and you are not on that ship. Maybe the bus tour blew a tire. Maybe you lost track of time. Maybe it's not your fault at all. Maybe you got sick or hurt, and the situation put you ashore whether you liked it or not. Whatever the reason, the horn sounds, the gangway comes up, and the ship sails without you. Your cabin door is still shut, your charger's still in the wall. And now that room isn't a job to be cleaned. It's a loose end the ship has to tie off before it clears the harbor. And here's where a character you've probably never heard of steps into the story, the port agent. Every port the ship visits has one, a local representative whose number is printed right there on your daily program and posted at the gangway, precisely because passengers get left behind often enough that there's a standing system for it. When the ship marks you as a no-show, the crew doesn't just shrug and sail. If there's time, they'll go into your cabin, grab the things you actually can't function without, your passport, your phone, any medication, and hand them off to that port agent on the dock before they leave. So the first surprise of getting stranded is that you're often not as stranded as you'd fear. Somewhere in that port, a stranger is holding a little bundle of your most important belongings with your name on it, waiting for you to call. That phone call is where the scenario forks and the money starts to matter. Because you've got two roads. You can chase the ship, hop a flight to its next port of call and rejoin, and if you do, the rest of your things are still in your cabin, waiting exactly where you left them. Or you can decide the chase isn't worth it and head home. And that second road is the one that quietly turns your belongings into freight. Because leaving didn't pause anything, it started a checkout. The ship keeps sailing the cabin you paid for, no refund for the nights you're no longer sleeping in it. Your onboard account, the folio that's been silently tracking every drink and every gift shop magnet, doesn't freeze, it settles automatically against the credit card you handed over at check-in, whether you're aboard to see the final statement or not. And the belongings still in that cabin, if you're not coming back for them, guest services can box them up and ship them to your door. And the postage, the customs, the whole logistics tab, that's generally on you, and it is not cheap. The last leg of your vacation becomes a box with a tracking number, which is the moment a lot of people start doing some very quick math. The unrefunded nights, the folio that settled without you, the flight home, and the freight bill to mail your own sandals across an ocean. None of it is optional, and none of it refunds itself. Except there's one thing sitting on top of all of it that changes the entire picture, and veteran cruisers buy it without blinking. A travel insurance policy is the difference between a bad day and a bill.
Look at what it actually bundles. Trip interruption, which reimburses the cruise days you paid for and didn't get to use. Medical coverage for when the reason you got left behind is that you're in a clinic ashore, and evacuation and repatriation, the six-figure line item that pays to physically move you home. That interruption coverage is what turns your unrefunded nights into a claim. That medical coverage is what stands between you and a foreign hospital bill. The recommended evacuation coverage for a cruise runs well into the hundreds of thousands of dollars, and the whole policy typically costs somewhere between 4 and 10% of your trip, often just a fraction of what you drop in the casino in one night. The one catch worth knowing, if you've got a pre-existing condition, the waiver that covers it usually has to be bought within about 2 to 3 weeks of your first deposit. Nobody has to sell you on any of this. You just lay the numbers next to each other and the policy stops looking like an upsell and starts looking like the most obvious purchase of the whole trip. And here's the quietly remarkable thing about the entire operation. To the ship, none of this is dramatic. The read the room, note the cabin, secure the belongings routine is the same machinery whether you stepped off for 4 hours or stepped off for good. The system doesn't get emotional about which one it is. It just runs the appropriate version. Steward for the day trip, port agent for the no-show. Every port day on every ship, thousands of left-behind rooms get quietly processed, and a steady handful of never-came-back cabins run through the very same pipeline. Same steward, same access log, same lost-and-found shelf, same folio settling. So think back to that closed door and the little tug on the handle. You know now what's on the other side of it. A steward who's also a censor, an access log with your name in it, a safe holding your risk instead of the ship's, a lost and found ledger with a slot for anything you forget, a port agent somewhere out there ready to catch your passport if the worst happens, and a folio, patient and automatic, waiting quietly for the end of your trip to square up.
one way or another. Next time you pull that door shut and head down the gangway into the sun, you won't picture an empty room anymore. You'll picture the list it's already on. And that quiet room behind you is not a time capsule. It's an open account. That's another one for the cruise files. If you want to learn more about what goes on behind the giant cruise ships, everything from the scams on board to the secrets below deck, subscribe, like, and share. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.